Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome 2025 Bradley Prize winner, Barry Strauss.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Bradley Foundation for the great honor it has granted me by making me one of the recipients of the 2025 Bradley Prize. I accept with gratitude and humility. Permit me to say a few words about the subject I know best, higher education. As Plato said, to have a just society, you need to educate people correctly. And in America, higher education aims to educate the best and the brightest. Our universities are a national treasure. They're a driving force in scientific progress, humanistic research, and the social sciences, and they attract students from around the world. American universities are a national treasure, but it is a tarnished treasure. The story is well known, in no small part thanks to the work of my fellow Bradley Prize winners this year and in previous years. Globalism has replaced nationalism. Careerism has replaced liberal education. Progressivism has entrenched itself, leaving centrists quiet and conservatives an endangered species. Campus activists have called for the eradication of Western civilization, the very civilization that made their universities possible, the main guarantor of the free exchange of ideas. You know, we used to joke that Western Civ was the kind of course in which if you looked out the window, you missed the French Revolution. Well, nowadays, some students think the purpose of going to college is to break windows and start revolutions. We need great research universities, but we also need universities that guarantee free speech and vigorous intellectual debate. Our job as scholars is to expand the boundaries of knowledge, and our job as educators is to teach students to think for themselves. Having to work in a monoculture is prejudicial to the mission. The idea of a university should be liberal education, an education that liberates students from their cherished but unexamined opinions and turns them toward truth, that prepares them to be free men and women. It is liberal education itself that is at risk from the trends of recent decades. But this is an old, well-known story. Let's turn to the good news, because encouraging things are happening across the country. Efforts are underway to restore our universities to their ideals. These are very old but very good notions, embodied in such mottos as Yale's Lux et Veritas, light and truth, Cornell's I would found an institution where any person can find instruction in any study, or Stanford's The Wind of Freedom Blows. Because we are Americans, these efforts are taking place not by means of central directives, but through the initiative of individuals, working together and forming new institutions, and with the help of a few generous foundations like Bradley. I have the good fortune to have spent most of my career at Cornell, a great institution and my alma mater. There, almost 20 years ago, I co-founded the program in Freedom and Free Societies. The program's core mission is to enhance the understanding and appreciation for constitutional liberty by stimulating inquiry into the nature and meaning of freedom. And I must say, Cornell is now once again the national championship in lacrosse. I now have the good fortune to be a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution on War, Revolution, and Peace at Stanford. Hoover is an exciting place for a historian. With the Hoover History Lab, the Hoover Applied History Working Group, and the Hoover Working Group on the role of military history in contemporary conflict, there is constant intellectual ferment and the free exchange of ideas, vigorously and openly debated. Hoover Fellows also play an active role in Stanford's civic initiative, whose goal is to further Stanford's mission of preparing students for, quote, virtuous and effective citizenship. But to quote Churchill, now this is not the end, it's not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. Churchill was referring to the Second World War. We're not fighting a war. To quote another great statesman, We're not enemies, but friends. All of us who love the university as I do must work together on a reset. Friends, I believe that we are entering an era of national renewal. As a historian, I study the question of how societies renew themselves. The answer is a combination of flexibility and a focus on a nation's founding principles. I will quote one of my favorite maxims, a line from Tomasi de Lampedusa's classic novel, Il Gatto Pardo, or The Leopard. In response to a revolution sweeping Sicily in the mid-19th century, the young scion of an aristocratic family explains to his old-fashioned uncle, "Se vogliamo che tutto rimanga com'è, bisogna che tutto cambi." That is, if we want things to stay the same, everything has to change. Cynical it may be, but it is nonetheless wise. Our universities were right to open their doors to new people and new subjects of study. Racial, ethnic, and gender diversity is both just and necessary. But they've gone about implementing it the wrong way through DEI because they forgot the core American principles of freedom and equal treatment before the law. They'll get it right. History offers examples of successful societal renewal, sometimes under extreme circumstances. Ancient Athens, for instance, was the world's first great democracy, but it faltered and lost the Peloponnesian War, with devastating effects on life, liberty, and national self-confidence. An oligarchic elite, always hostile to Athens' experiment in rule by the common man, launched a coup d'etat and replaced democracy with oligarchy. They talked idealism and bared their fangs. They executed their opponents and confiscated their wealth. Then the Democrats fought back with an army made up of ordinary people. They waged war and they won. Both sides agreed to an amnesty, the first in recorded history. In the following years, the city revised its constitution to strengthen the rule of law. It became more orderly, but not one whit less democratic. Athens healed its wounds by drawing on its heritage of citizenship and public spiritedness. It proved to be resilient. So did another city worthy of our attention, Jerusalem. It's the subject of my new book, Jews versus Rome. After launching not one, but 3 massive revolts against their overlord, the Roman Empire, the Jewish people lost their temple, their national capital, the better part of their homeland, and in many cases, they lost their lives. Nevertheless, the Jews, like the Athenians, proved resilient. They drew on their heritage, centered on a holy book, the Torah, and on the men who interpreted it, the rabbis. The rabbis rallied the people and began instituting rituals to replace the lost temple. Meanwhile, other Jews also adored the Torah, but they believed that their mission now was to preach to the nations. They took their inspiration from Jesus Christ, whom they hailed as Messiah and whose gospel they preached. For both Jews and Christians, the fire of resistance became the flame of resilience. Our society, too, will prove resilient if it returns to its roots in the Western tradition and the history of the American Republic, starting with its founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. We need to acknowledge flaws, of course we do, but more important, we need to teach our students the character of greatness, and we can hardly do better than Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln did not go to an Ivy League school. He did not go to an Ivy League plus school. He did not go to a great public university. Abraham Lincoln did not go to college. Abraham Lincoln didn't go to high school. Lincoln had less than a year of formal schooling altogether, which he pursued in drips and drabs. He was mainly self-educated, including in the law. Yet Lincoln was arguably our greatest president. He owed his success to his natural intelligence, to the culture of the society in which he lived, and above all, I think, he owed it to his character, and he owed it to his education. It was a self-education, but was an education in greatness, focusing on the Bible, Shakespeare, and the documents of the American founding. Lincoln's education was simple, but it was patriotic, fundamental, and ambitious. It supported him as he faced his country's greatest crisis and taught him to channel his character into unforgettable words. And my words will be forgotten if I can't get these papers apart. Here we go. I have a challenge for American higher education. My fellow professors, remember that Lincoln, one of America's greatest citizens, Lincoln owes us in the Academy nothing. Let that be a reason for humility. Let it be a reminder that fancy seminars and boutique courses and enrichment programs are worth little unless they can shape men and women who can aim as high as Lincoln. I challenge our universities to return to a curriculum that educates for greatness, for citizenship, for freedom, for America. Thank you.